So, good morning. Good morning. It is January the 30th, 2022, and we are about to understand the American Rescue Plan that was approved by Nevada. So, let's just understand what the plan was, how we participated, if we participated, and as Black Lives do matter, let's understand it's a new day, and it is a new dawn, and it's just a new America. Join in the conversation, shall you?
Nevada Department of Education submitted September 7, 2021 American Rescue Plan, Education for Homeless Children and Youth Part B, Programmatic, Fiscal, and Reporting Assurances D. Within 60 days from publication of this application, the SEA will submit a plan to homeless@ed.gov that contains the following information. For ARP Homeless I. 1. How the SEA has used or will use up to 25% of funds awarded under ARP Homeless I for state-level activities to provide training, technical assistance, capacity building, and engagement at the state and LEA levels, including support to LEAs to increase access to summer programming in 2021. This must include how the SEA has supported LEAs to plan for and provide wraparound services, in collaboration with state and local agencies for immediate needs this spring 2021, and how it will support LEAs for school year 2021-2022. This should include the extent to which the SEA has or plans to build capacity in these that have not received an EHCY subgrant in the past in order to ensure that these LEAs are well prepared to utilize the funds provided in ARP Homeless 2. The Nevada Department of Education, NE, will use 25% of ARP Homeless I funds for state-level activities to provide training, technical assistance, capacity building, and engagement at the state and LEA levels. The examples of activities that NDE plans on using ARP Homeless I state-level activities funding for this purpose includes, but is not limited to, the following. A. Landscape of needs of children and youth experiencing homelessness across Nevada. Black Small Square partner with evaluators to conduct a statewide comprehensive landscape analysis of students experiencing homelessness to pinpoint areas of need strengths and where additional supports are needed, including training, technical assistance, capacity building, and engagement at the state and LEA levels. B. Partner with community-based organizations throughout state to assist with the identification and support of youth experiencing homelessness. C. Partner with national organization to provide technical assistance and capacity building for SEA and LEA leaders on identifying and supporting youth and families experiencing homelessness. The SEA has conducted an ARP Homeless Technical Assistance TA webinar for LEAs where we reviewed ARP Homeless I priorities, requirements, and allowabilities to support LEAs in use of these funds. This included discussing how funds can be used to provide wraparound services to students. NDE has also coordinated ARP Homeless I brainstorming sessions planned to assist with LEA capacity building. These sessions provide an opportunity for LEAs to discuss innovative strategies for addressing the needs of students experiencing homeless with LEAs. The education for page 1 of 6. Nevada Department of Education submitted September 7, 2021 Homeless Children and Youth, EHCY State Coordinator serves as a thought partner to ensure statewide coordination of efforts and that all LEAs are well prepared to utilize ARP Homeless funds. In addition, regularly scheduled CLE meetings and office hours support current EHCY LEAs and LEAs that have not received an EHCY subgrant in the past. This approach allows also grantees opportunities to adjust their strategies and activities to prevent supplanting in line with applicable guidance. Moreover, NE has developed a Path Forward resource guide to help support LEAs in their planning of federal relief funds. Within this resources, there are suggested strategies on what LEAs and schools can do to provide wraparound services to students, including students experiencing homelessness. 2. How the SEA has used or will use their funds for state-level activities to provide support to LEAs to increase access to summer programming and plan for and provide wraparound services for summer 2021, in collaboration with state and local agencies and other community-based organizations. And due to the state of Nevada's internal approval process timelines, NDE did not have the legal authority to utilize ARP homeless and state-level activities funding for summer 2021. However, during regularly scheduled CLE meetings and office hours, NDE continues to support LEAs in ensuring that students experiencing homelessness have the resources they need, including wraparound services and other programming to thrive educationally. 3. How the SEA has used or will use at least 75% of funds awarded under ARP Homeless for distribution to LEAs in accordance with all requirements of EHCY. This must include the extent to which the SEA has or will use funds to supplement existing EHCY subgrants to allow for more rapid fund distribution to address the needs of students experiencing homelessness, and the extent to which the SEA analyzed and reviewed where there are significant concentrations of students and families experiencing homelessness across the state, including in LEAs that are not existing EHCY subgrantees, and how it has or will ensure that supports from ARP Homeless can urgently reach them. NDE has used 75% of funds awarded under ARP Homeless for distribution to LEAs in accordance with all requirements of EHCY, to allow for the rapid distribution of funds. Per federal guidance, the SEA has distributed these funds to current EHCY subgrantees to supplement existing EHCY subgrants. ARP Homeless funds were distributed to current EHCY subgrantees in the same proportion they received McKinney-Vento awards. These funds are distributed through NDE's online grants management system to allow funds to be available to LEAs in an efficient, streamlined and expedient manner. LEAs must respond to specific questions within the online system before they can be allocated funding to ensure all EHCY requirements are met. NDE has regular communication with its LEA McKinney-Vento liaison and has used these meetings to analyze and review at liaison where there are significant concentrations. Page 2 of 6. Nevada Department of Education submitted September 7, 2021 of students and families experiencing homelessness across the state. Further, we held an initial stakeholder engagement meeting with stakeholders who represent students and families experiencing homelessness to assist with this analysis and review. In addition to these regular communications, NDE will also utilize the landscape analysis described in question I-1 to target areas of need to ensure that supports from ARP homeless funds can reach the areas where the
I think I stopped something. That's okay. Oh, goodness. I just can't believe they did all of this work. I just want to really understand, who is participating and at what level, simply because, in America, fraud seems to be rampant. And then you see that young Miss Black USA, how she killed herself. And she was an advocate, but she committed suicide, right? And she was an advocate. But right now, when we have so much, and she was an attorney, and that's just a lot of investment in herself to just jump out the window. I don't know what was going on. I would say something other than what we understand. It's just, kind of like Prince. You hear me?
The SEA will use 25% of ARP Homeless 2 funds for state-level activities to provide training, technical assistance, capacity building, and engagement at the state and LEA levels. NDE's plan for the strategic use of these funds is derived from stakeholder feedback in addition to data and information from the National Voices of Youth Count report by Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago. Examples of activities that NDE plans to use ARP Homeless 2 state-level activities funding for includes, but is not limited to, the following: A. statewide professional learning and training for the SEA, LEAs and school-level educators on understanding the McKinney-Vento law requirements and how to best meet the needs of these students experiencing homelessness. B. Statewide LEA and school resources for supplemental educational supports for students experiencing homelessness. C. Development of training and technical assistance materials and translation of those materials into Spanish and other languages spoken by students and families across the state. D. Continuation of evaluation to measure effectiveness of funds. E. Maintenance of the expansion of statewide data collection system for students experiencing homelessness. The SEA will also provide support to LEAs to plan for and provide wraparound services in collaboration with state and local agencies for the 2021-2022 school year and beyond. NDE will use a portion of its ARP Homeless 2 state-level activities funds to partner with local community-based organizations who specialize in the area of wraparound supports to provide these services to students experiencing homelessness. Moreover, NDE's ARPHCY team will collaborate with NDE's Office of Safe and Respectful Learning Environment, who leads the coordination and implementation of wraparound supports for students across the state to build upon the partnerships with wraparound services providers such as the University of Nevada, Reno's Positive Behavior Interventions and Support Technical Assistance. Page 3 of 6. Nevada Department of Education submitted September 7, 2021 Center to include a focus on students experiencing homelessness. This will likely include technical assistance and professional development opportunities for our LEAs to help build capacity for these supports. Additionally, NDE will use state-level activities funds to hire an ARP-HCY contractor who will serve as a liaison between NDE and other state local agencies, such as the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services and Clark County Social Services Department, to build upon these partnerships to coordinate services for students experiencing homelessness across the state for the 2021-2022 school year and beyond. 2. How the SEA will use at least 75% of funds awarded under ARP Homeless 2 for distribution to LEAs in accordance with the final requirements. This must include a description of how the SEA will distribute funds in accordance with the required formula to address the needs of students experiencing homelessness and the extent to which the SEA has encouraged or will encourage the creation of consortia for those LEAs that may not meet the required minimum formula amount. The SEA will use 75% of funds awarded under ARP Homeless 2 for distribution to LEAs in accordance with the final requirements. NDE created a spreadsheet with the requisite formula embedded to ensure LEA allocations are in alignment with the final requirements. LEAs will have access to the funds and will need to submit a plan that meets all necessary requirements for use of these funds before they can officially receive them. In an ARP Homeless TA webinar NDE hosted, LEAs were made aware of the consortia requirement for LEAs whose allocation is less than $5,000. The LEAs that will be required to join a consortia are Esmeralda County School District, Eureka County School District, Lander County School District and Story County School District. NDE has offered assistance to these LEAs to help form consortia. In addition, NDE will facilitate meetings, as needed, with these 4 LEAs to support the formation of consortia. We will keep LEAs abreast of any consortia technical, grants and programmatic requirements and updates throughout the grant award period for these funds. For both ARP Homeless I and ARP Homeless 2. 1. How the SEA will ensure that ARP-HCY supplements the support and services provided with ARP-ESSER funds and does not replace the use of ARP-ESSER funds to support the needs of students experiencing homelessness. The SEA will ensure that ARP-HCY supplements the support and services provided with ARP-ESSER funds and does not replace the use of ARP-ESSER funds to support the needs of students experiencing homelessness. As part of the assurances for ARP-HCY funds, each LEA must certify that they will not use ARP-HCY funds to supplant ARP-ESSER funding reserved for students experiencing homelessness. This requirement leads to ensure they are aware and understand exactly what this means. Once ARP-ESSER LEA applications are submitted, They will be reviewed by NDE to ensure all requirements have been met. The ARPHCY-LEA applications will page 4 of 6 NDE has explained. Nevada Department of Education submitted September 7, 2021 ARPHCY supplements the support and services provided with ARP-ESSER funds and does not replace the use of ARP-ESSER funds to support the needs of students experiencing homelessness. 2. The extent to which such as rural children and youth, tribal children and youth, students of color, children and youth with disabilities, English learners, LGBTQ+ youth, and pregnant, parenting, or caregiving students experiencing homelessness, and connect them to educationally related support and wraparound services, and follow this same process. NDE will take note of the activities, strategies, and interventions that have been reserved for students experiencing homelessness in each LEA's initial ARP-ESSER application. When reviewing subsequent revisions of each LEA's ARP-ESSER application, NDE will ensure that no funding which was initially reserved for students experiencing homelessness has been eliminated and replaced with ARPHCY funds. This regular cross-check will ensure that the SEA will use its state-level activities funds to award subgrants or contracts to community-based organizations that are well-positioned to identify children and youth experiencing homelessness in historically underserved populations. NDE will use its state-level activities funds to award subgrants or contracts to community-based organizations that are well-positioned to identify children and youth experiencing homelessness in historically underserved populations. The SEA is in the process of identifying and reaching out to these types of community-based organizations across the state through research and collaboration with LEAs and other state agencies. The SEA has reserved funding from its state-level activities specifically for the purpose of subgranting to and/or contracting with community-based organizations that are focused on supporting historically underserved student populations. NDE plans on providing guidance and technical assistance to these types of community-based organizations and to also have regular communication with them to measure, monitor, progress of identifying children and youth experiencing homelessness in historically underserved populations. 3. During its ARPHCYTA webinar for LEAs, NDE shared information on the importance of LEA community partnerships and encouraged LEAs to award contracts to community-based organizations to assist in identifying and supporting historically underserved populations experiencing homelessness. Further, the SEA has hosted ARPHCY-LEA brainstorming sessions to discuss strategic ways to utilize ARPHCY funds and further discussed and encouraged LEAs to use their ARPHCY funding for these purposes. NDE also will continue to encourage LEAs to utilize the Path Forward Resource Guide as a resource to seek partnerships with community-based organizations to assist them with supporting students experiencing homelessness. The SEA will encourage LEAs to award contracts to community-based organizations to help identify and support historically underserved populations experiencing homelessness. SEA will continue to encourage LEAs to award contracts to community-based organizations to help identify and support historically underserved populations experiencing homelessness. Page 5 of 6. Nevada Department of Education submitted September 7, 2021 over the course of each school year and life of the grant. NDE will continue to encourage LEAs to leverage their community-based organizations as key resources stakeholders to identify, engage, and support youth experiencing homelessness. Page 6 of 6.
Well, that is it. Now, I want you to understand, I'm going to switch to the state plan. Is this the plan? And how many pages is this? I got to go to the top. I'm going to stop there. Stop the share. I'm going to go back to share. And this is it right here, I think. All right. This is the approval letter. And you just have to understand, that was the plan. And if you weren't involved, I'm sorry. But this is the approval letter. Okay, let's select it all. It's only one pager. And let's read, shall we? Oh, everybody needs to be on the same page because I'm certainly tired of all this other ignorance. Start speaking.
The Honorable Joan Eber, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Nevada Department of Education, 700 East 5th Street, Carson City, Nevada, 89701-5096. Dear State Superintendent Ebert, the Secretary of Education, Washington, District of Columbia, 20202, January 14, 2022. I am pleased to approve Nevada's American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Homeless Children and Youth, ARPHCY State Plan. This plan, together with the unprecedented funding available under the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, ARP-ESSER Fund, will help support districts and schools in your state in identifying homeless children and youth, providing wraparound services in light of the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19, providing assistance needed to enable homeless children and youth to attend school and participate fully in school activities, and address the social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs of students due to the impact of COVID-19. Nevada's plan is consistent with all ARPHCY statutory and regulatory requirements and addresses all ARPHCY state plan elements. This letter, along with Nevada's approved ARPHCY state plan, will be posted on the U.S. Department of Education's department's website. Please be aware that approval of Nevada's ARPHCY state plan is not a determination that all the information included in the state plan complies with federal civil rights requirements, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and requirements under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It is Nevada's responsibility to comply with these civil rights requirements. The department is committed to working in partnership with your state so that your ARPHCY funds are quickly put to work to ensure children and youth experiencing homelessness are expeditiously identified and connected to wraparound services as well as other educationally related support services that they may need to recover fully from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The thoughtful, evidence-based, and timely use of ARPHCY funds will have a lasting impact on our nation's schools and help to address the inequities in resources, services, and opportunities available to our students. Sincerely, S. Miguel A. Cardona, ed.d.
Okay, we can stop the share. And understand that Nevada did get its plan approved, but not without all that different support listed for homeless children. And as I met some homeless people, they didn't know where to go. And a lot of homeless people are just not connected to anything. And how they're providing services for the homeless is through the courtyard. And more people don't know anything about that either. But the outcomes of the maintenance and effort as April quickly approaches us. Understand, we pay taxes for public services. And the voice that we need to share in our concern of the failed services was looking in the mirror every morning, and we just didn't hear you. And as we have been ignored as a people for far too long in regards to the federal investment in America, understand, we know who we are. And young African American former Miss USA people who was an attorney, who was an advocate for public services, would jump out of a window. There are so many children that need that kind of additional voice, and she probably didn't have children. And the jump, I don't know. I don't know what could be so horrifying that would make you take your life, because people are living with issues every day. And there are overcomers out there, and it's called faith and understanding that there's something more that we all must do. So get a clue. The word is, Eper B'Shinnim. Out of many there's one, but out of one there will be none. So who are you in 2022? Understand, when we understand who we are, there's just no end to the revelation of total empowerment live on Facebook because I filed a complaint with the department, the Office of, what was it, OSE? Office of Inspector General's Office of Public Education, because I had filed a complaint against the state of Nevada. And as you can see, Nevada talked about the homeless youth plan. Well, how many African American organizations sat down and talked about the number of children who are living in poverty and how we have mothers? I'm sure that that young mother that took her 3 children's lives could have used that attorney that recently committed suicide. Or did she? When DMX died of a heart attack, or did he? In America, you cannot trust the system that we live under as they are trying to change what has historically been established as free and human rights. And human rights is why we won, because people should be able to make a decision as to their obligation and their personal responsibility for their choices in life. But when other people are in it to win it, they are willing to do anything to win. And you see, everything in America is based on the analytical thought process of the benefit to the people and how we are a system of capitalism, and public services demand that we all invest in what we see as our nation. And as citizens, what are you doing? And how are you doing it? We don't have time to waste. We have judges that are removing children from women when the women couldn't have enough support to have a roof over their head. Of course, we have Housing and Redevelopment Agency, HUD, but you can't get Section 8. And when you're a senior, after you have been deemed disabled and they put you on the disabled list and they give you a certain amount of money to live off of, well, where's the requirement that you have the right to live off of what they were giving you? Because they're not giving you anymore. You should be able to sustain yourself, but when you can't, okay, then you're deemed unfit. Are you serious? We work for a living. And that's why, I just came back and did something different. Because I continue to learn, I continue to empower myself, and I would suggest that you do the same thing too. In America, you are only who you believe you are, or you ain't, whatever. I don't have time. I don't care about what people think about me. That's not my issue. My issue is when a third grader would consider suicide as a 30-year-old, a United States American beauty queen who has participated in the television. You understand what I'm saying? Who understands that the television is not reality and real life is over here. Who was an attorney. Why would she kill herself? We needed her, and we need so many more. I know another mother who I was watching, and her son killed his son self because he took his children. And they didn't understand. But when you have a 49% population rate of children in the foster care system, and when there are parents who would beat their children, no mercy was on that baby. As they put the pictures on the television, and that large man and his woman and that little tiny baby with all those scars head to toe. And the DA said, why should they give them back the baby? But the judge did persecute them. As we come from a mental torture of slavery in America, and every February they would like for us to understand just where we came from. Hell, I think my dad was in the Air Force, but we really didn't have TV at first. And then I remember in the 60s, well, we were in the military, and even if you had TV and you were overseas, you didn't understand konnichiwa. Why gozaimasu? You don't mushi mushi. Hey! And, you learn little words, but the real deal is that we waited for the Lone Ranger on the radio. And, and then when we got back to the States, it was the Green Hornet television. And, Perry Mason and, all the little television shows. But when George Bush was in office, it was Dexter. And he was running around killing people because people that, somehow did not get caught under the judicial system, well, he just took care of them on his own. And he worked for, the legal system. And then you start understanding the conflict and the struggle. Because we live under a system in America that says we are free. Free to do what? You are free for someone to take liberty of you. And so when you get conned out of your money, you have to fight to get your money back. You have to be careful. When you are married in the military and you get a divorce, you get no compensation for the years that you were married to the partner, especially when they were abusive and you had to leave the relationship. It's just kind of like the abuse is going on right now under the entertainment system of football and how vicious these men are to their spouses. They should be made to take some kind of effective communication classes. But when young black people don't understand the power of this new platform of empowerment, and I say it is a platform and it's whatever you choose to do with it. Because I get to I get to do my videos over here and save them on Facebook, and then download them and upload them to YouTube. And then it's just about building capacity. And how do you build capacity within a community of people who don't want to talk to you, who would like to call you because you are free to access and ask you a few questions, but they believe that they need to know and not really have the conversation. And I'm going to tell you the secret. Did you guys read the book, The Secret? My son brought me that book, The Secret. I really didn't understand it even when I read it at first. But then I did. Because it's simply about who you believe that you are and the promise of life. And we have so many young people that are dying early because they're eating all this processed food. They're just eating these chemicals and they don't understand. And as you know, we've gotten into the age of convenience and everything immediate. I want it. And understanding that we don't even have to develop our own selves. You're on this journey, and the journey is long, and you receive these gifts of life. You nurture those gifts, and you try to build your tribe. But it really is about tribalism and hanging on to your people and giving them the safety net of the knowledge that you learned, your sacrifice. And then our children sometimes don't even appreciate what we've done. How callous is it, how the struggle is, and what people feel that they have to give to the ones that gave them life. And if 10 minutes is good enough for you, 10 minutes is good enough for me, and I might not see you another time for another 2 or 3 weeks, but 10 minutes is not good for the matriarch of your family. People need to really invest and spend some time and brush some hair and talk to people so that they know that they're loved. How is it that we go through this universal, conundrum? Because we live in chaos. And if you understand Martin and Malcolm, then you understand these two gentlemen behind me. And they're just not afraid to speak up. And they're intelligent and they are well read. Well, I can say I'm not well read, but I'm well listened. I listen to so many people on, and I didn't even never read any of James Baldwin's books, but I got to hear him talk intelligently. And, I want to tell you, so many things are on C-SPAN's website where you get to understand that Congress has been making choices for how long. And, they establish it. We're living under the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment of the United States Constitution. But you don't understand the power within that structure. Well, I want you to understand. It's just simply what it is. People have problems because children are coming up from the border and they're getting resources. They get a better education than you because they get a bilingual education. They have a right to have education in their own language, and that's just how we roll as a nation, how we roll as a people, But if you're not a part of the people book, well, what can I say? I give love and honor to the human population. But when our children don't understand that we must work together and form a coalition amongst our young, intelligent people, like the young woman who just committed suicide, was an attorney, was a public advocate, but then would jump out of a window of her apartment building. And Lord, help us. What have we become? We are not a nation of humans anymore. We're a nation of people who believe that the insurrection on January the 6th was a simple misbehavior issue, and it wasn't. It was an attack on our nation, attack on our values, as they don't see us having the same rights as them. And, they want to put Donald Trump back through the election process, and I want to say it's going to destroy our nation because simply any man that can just grab the pussy without any regard is a menace to our society. And the behaviors that he participated in are real. You know what? My camera's having a little moment of fluctuation. It's a power surge. Whatever. But I just want you to understand in America who you are as an individual. And young people, young black men on the Raiders team, boy, we have so many black men here that could share in the journey that you're on with so much money. You are only human. And the example of behavior that you need to demonstrate is one of pride for who you are and how far you've come. Yet and still, the ignorance of people who don't understand the power in the net and how they can make you look. Look, did you believe that Nevada was going to drop that whatever charge against that young man because they couldn't get him on the DUI? So they negotiated that, but they can't negotiate that he would stand there with a rifle. But guess what? When it comes to the right to life, people, they can come armed, and they did come armed. They came armed to Obama's rallies. I mean, what was that all about? And when we don't have to pass the George Floyd bill in Congress, we don't have to acknowledge that our people have the same rights as their people. For the failure to comply, death should not be the only option. As I have young African American men, and I've raised them well, and they are compliant. And I saw compliancy on the day that George Floyd died. So why are we just not imposing infractions on those people and finding them guilty? Because under their duty to these United States, and what they should have done was not what they did. They're to protect human rights and human life. And they participated in a murder, a taking of a life. Now, how does that reason? I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how they want us to feel when they want to talk about Ahmaud Arbery and continue to talk about Ahmaud Arbery in the civil rights case. Although those men got 20 years in Georgia, which was unprecedented. Never happened before in America that white men would get 20 years in prison, would get any time in prison for killing a black man. And especially when they were doing it in the name of their local community. Help me with that. Mr. Stephon Clark is out there trying to advocate for the murder of his brother. When his brother made it to his grandmother's home, and in the middle of the night, when they would violate her property rights and go through her yard, to her backyard, and then holler, "Gun, gun, gun!" And it was only a cell phone. And what are we supposed to do as we understand that in America, our people have consistently just come up missing, and understand the hunt that was going on in the Ahmaud Arbery case? And enough of the televisions, the lies that are told under the name of entertainment. That's not my life. My life more resembled something like the Huxtables, but then you want to make them perverts. Anything that had to do with Bill Cosby. Oh, they took it off syndicate. They took it off because those people were still getting a paycheck every time those reruns ran, and they just couldn't see themselves letting go of that kind of money. No, boo. We're talking about the disempowerment or the de-evaluation of the human life. As African Americans here in Clark County have little or no access to early start. And I'll say that because, there are numbers. When they pay out federal allocation, there are requirements for Social Security numbers and everything to identify who's benefiting. But when everybody here in Clark County just gets a free lunch, and then goddamn it, I just have a problem with that. I have so many problems that I figure that it doesn't really matter. This is my legacy. You understand what legacy is? Maybe you don't. And I don't have to belong to a group to understand where I am and my ability to share and communicate. And it's on you if you choose to listen or you choose not. It's your choice. In America, we all have choice. And we can focus on what we like to focus on. But living is the key. And how are you living life? I could say, I'm living large, and you wouldn't know how I'm living because I present myself as I am living large, because this is a knowledge base, boo. Has to do with knowledge, and you too can become your own podcaster on Anchor and share your concept ideas. But it really doesn't matter, because it really does matter how we see the world. And my journey has been long, and it's been filled with trials and tribulations, but I still stand, and it's okay with me. And I don't care about how you judge me. What I do know is that in America, that the assessments and evaluation and support for children who transition age-appropriate goals and milestones need to be met, because there is an opportunity for growth and development here in Clark County like no other, as there are no foundational services. There are just people that grab this and grab that. Oh, I like that over there and I like that over there, and they put it all together and the shit don't work. Who does it work for? Well, the designers, quite frankly. I mean, I did go on Face's website and I did log in there, and and I get some of the stuff because my son was on Google Calendar and we were in Google Classroom, so I don't think it kicks you out like that. I just moved to a new area and they're just new resources, I will say, that, on Eventbrite that you can see, and there's nothing that stops the local people from joining in the conversation. It's just that it's not a process that's been established. But from town to town and from city to city, as the bridges are falling apart, and they were falling apart during the Obama years, and the Republican Party fought fiercely not to approve any of the support and the nation building that was going on under Barack Obama. And then they grab the pussy in the office. And I don't care what people don't like about what that says, because it could be grabbing a pussy cat. I mean, it's all in the interpretation of words, but apparently that wasn't what the former president meant. But he was the president of these United States, and his behavior was questionable, at least. At the little bit, his behavior was questionable, but he acted like he was the king. And he was the king because he brought his children in and he gave them enormous power. Then all of a sudden, we were under the rule of someone whose wife was formerly Russian or still Russian from that part of the world. And that, you understand the limited thinking, as African Americans have been gifted certain resources and not followed. Just so everybody, if one group is not following the rules, then nobody has to follow the rules, and we're doing everything because George Bush fixed it so that any population of people, even when the rules are violated, if they're not standing up on their own, well, no one's going to say something about it. But I can say something about it because I know fraud when I see fraud. And the mere fact that they talked about so much they're planting in the plan, and they're going to make sure that these agencies understand not to supplant. But when they ain't got no other choice and ain't no other money coming, because Nevada just approved the mining money going into the general fund, where they put all the other titles, monies, all the restricted funds And then that somehow they changed the color of money when they changed the top positions and bust them down to lower positions where they're not reporting, and they're just not reporting, boo. And I don't care. I mean, it is what it is. When it ultimately comes down to the way you see life and how you're living life, and what you can avoid and what you don't have to pay attention to, and how do you build in your local community when you don't know, when you just dropped in this local community. I just dropped in here. But understand me when I say, when I dropped in here, I came from somewhere and I knew what was going on. So I could look at this system and the lack of maintenance and the lack of outcomes and the lack of measurable annual goals, MAOs or M whatever. The deal is that LEAs and SEAs are local agencies and state agencies. And when the money comes in, it's for the community's discussion. And as they have already brought you in, boo, they have not talked about the maintenance of effort and the outcomes in your local community, because that's really all we are talking about. How are they measuring the benefit of life for the investment of the people who look like you? But if you have so many people that have so much money, i.e. Henry Ruggs, what was that young man thinking about? In the middle of the night at 4 a.m., and be in the car with a woman that has bore him a child, and then to have all this chaos and conflict in the minds of these young African American males who see the oppression all around them and then don't understand the power that they possess, and then risk it all in a moment of passion, and then the punishment of the overseer, boo, because payback comes from the acknowledgement of the deed and doing things to talk about how that shouldn't have happened, and repentance, you give me. But when they're going to take away the opportunity for this young man to repent and pay back, repent and pay back, No, I heard the DA say that this boy should get like 50 years for a fuck up in the middle of the night where he didn't think twice. And when he didn't have the skills and ability to disaggregate what was going on in his mind level, and then it came out in physical rage. It's rage behind the wheel, rage behind the wheel. Just as there was a rage incident tonight, January 30th, yesterday, where someone was going 100 miles an hour on the street. And why the streets are built like freeways here? Reality. Maybe you should put some turnabouts in there or some speed bumps, because no one should be able to get to 100 miles an hour on a public street. But that's not what was going on with that other that Henry Ruggs. No, in the middle of the night. How fast was he going on the street? And that was not a speedway. But I think that we have to give people an opportunity to vent, to talk about their pent-up rage feelings and how they deal with their issues of conflict, because it's going to be imperative that we all understand that we are engaged in this community, yet and still the representation lacks the engagement. You know what I mean by that? I mean the NAACP. When I went to the training that was given here in Las Vegas for the national, came here and did a training, and people from this region all went, and there was myself and the president of the NAACP. And you know what she told me? She said, my people work and they have responsibilities, and I'm here to represent. But Gilba, she didn't even stay the whole time. So I want to understand what the representation is when you don't participate at a level of engaging in the community that you would know what's going on. And when people can be misidentified with the same name and a different color skin, and then you figure that you should step in and say that should never happen. And I say, how did it ever happen in the first place, Bill? Because we're not looking at the lack of maintenance for the people who look like us, and the struggles and inability to access resources when they would provide early resources, and they would go up to 200% of the poverty level, Boo. But you don't want to have those conversations because you've already chosen what you're working for. So to have a conversation with local law enforcement and to have the national groups representing the conversation of local law enforcements with the people, and then the people understand that they're living under this type of oppression, yet and still the conversation where they can have it would be on Power 88.1. You know, people do call in. People have the ability to share their concerns. I'm just saying, where's the representation? That's what I'd like to know. Because when people write grants like My Brother's Keeper and then have no data to demonstrate the services that are happening, and then you want to have the mentorship program and all those African Americans that I saw at the state level that were on the board of the mentoring thing, dedicating money to the not-for-profit agencies that are getting this money. But then it not to reach our people, not to reach our young people who have those ideas about empowering other young people in their community, and none of the money coming to the organization of African American educators that work with the community. Not one dime of parent involvement money has gone to that organization. And I've worked with Kamala and Tracy for the last couple of years, and Rodney Smith too, you know, our voices. And I give them props for what they can do. But you don't know what can be done if you've never been in the room. And y'all have not been in the room, and I have. And I don't have to have an invitation to understand what they're doing, as I know where to go get the information, as you guys all witness Nevada's plan for the homeless youth. And I would say that perhaps, you know, the person out there in the city of Las Vegas, in the council, they understand the services that are coming from that money, that is not being provided from the local school system. And when Nevada would cop to a guiltiness of the behavior of the children in the juvenile facility, and they just said, we're wrong, we're going to accept it. And that's why I appealed my complaint and won. But you see, at the end of the road, if the final decisions as to how oversight happens and how states are required to meet the same standards for all children, if there's no foundational, you mean it's over, then it's going to continue. So I say, it's over, and we all have the same rights. So let's just talk about what's not happening in our communities and how we're going to position people in places where they should be, so we know what's really going on with the ARP and ESSER funds for the homeless youth in Clark County and the foster youth program. And we just need to know. I mean, you know, I've heard people say, well, why are these kids getting a check? And they don't even have room. I mean, you know, part of that is that, you know, children with disabilities do get a check. But the real reality is that, you know, those families that applied for that $5,000 scholarship money that was coming for families that had children with disabilities, and the people in poverty really didn't get any of that money because it was all about the people who knew the money was coming out the door. Well, then wake up in 2022. We have much work to do. So stand. I'll say stand. Because our young people have to be empowered. They have to, you can't represent this nation. Understand, when that young woman would, they say, jumped out the window when she was an attorney. An attorney, you understand how many years of investment that was and how difficult that was, but then she wouldn't kill herself about that. But what would she kill herself about? Or did she kill herself? I don't know. Seems suspect. But guess what? Something we'll never know because we weren't there. And whatever's done in the dark does come to the light. Yet and still, the lack of maintenance for Brown versus the Board of Education, the lack of maintenance for the Civil Rights Act for the African American community, and the mere fact that Tulsa, Oklahoma happened, well, in 2022, when they thought that I could not stream on live on Facebook, and then the girls would tell me when I go to those little community meetings out there at the center out there on Lake Mead, that, oh, they do that. I said, oh, no, they've never done it to me. And when I saw that level of behavior, especially when they would send me documents in the mail where I had to provide my ID card, my driver's license, and I had to also have my fingerprints or whatever go over here and get it certified at the UPS store, and then send them a copy of my certification saying that I'm not a political advocate. No, I'm an American citizen. And then they would ban me on Facebook live streaming every time I picked up my phone and listened to a meeting with the Clark County School District, because that's where they present to the community. And how unfortunate that not everybody understands how to access that resource, because it's not on public broadcast station where it should be. The public school system does not broadcast on public broadcast station. No, they have their own little, somebody's getting paid. You get me? But it's not a public resource. And because none of the resources are talked about publicly, hell, the state board doesn't even do a presentation that is saved. You have to go in and watch it and record it. Then you can share it, but they're not sharing shit. It says it's all on video somewhere, but not for you. You can't go back and get it. So hell no. These are federal dollars, and the investment is in the local community. And if it lacks leadership, well, then what can I say? I'm just doing what I know how to do. And I suggest you step up too, boo. In 2022, the word is e pluribus unum. Out of many, there's one. But out of one, there will be none. And who will you be in 2022? Y'all have a great day.